Hello, this is Cho of the Shiny Colors Discord, and welcome to another episode of the Shiny Review. Today we have 4 cards we need to talk about. The first are 2 limiteds, a new SSR for Yuika, a produced card, and a new support SSR for Chiyuki. Then we have 2 event cards, one being more of a campaign while the other is a standard event, both being for Mono. Starting things off with Yuika. Rounding out the 4th set of SSRs for Antika is Yuika, who is somewhat of a unique case for a limited SSR. Rather than being focused on one particular stat and improving upon it per extra copy, Yuika instead completely shifts focus upon reaching 4 stars, in both playstyle and attribute. The main thing I can say is that this Yuika is incredibly strange, but not unwelcomed as a limited card. In a lot of ways, this Yuika is an incredible card, but not on her own. She shines best when paired next to many of the other limited Antika cards, especially on a vocal lineup. So if you're a player who has already found Kiriko 4 and Sakuya 4, the 2 most popular limiteds for Antika, Yuika 4 has a perfect home, assuming you aim for 4 stars. This card somehow almost doesn't feel like a limited, but here we are. Her roles are Memory Booster, Buffer, and she plays actively in Revenge, as well as a bit of a tank. I moderately recommend that you pull this Yuika. She's not super meta, and I wouldn't necessarily say that she's going to be a big meta breaker, but she is very interesting, and I would recommend it especially if you're a big fan of Yuika. Yuika's initial skill is a Dance 3.5 appeal that applies a mental damage cut of 20% for 3 turns, meaning that you take 20% less damage for those 3 turns. This then links into a standard Dance 3.0 appeal. At max, this becomes a Vocal 5.0 with a mental cut of 50%, not to be confused with a mental damage cut. In this case, you're actually reducing your current HP by 50%. This also then applies a 5-turn Vocal buff of 50%, and links into a Vocal 3.0 appeal. Yuika's 1-star passive is a Vocal Dance 33% up that only requires her to be on the team. This has a 33% chance to activate 3 times and also has a Dance plus 100 uncapped. At 2 stars, she has a Vocal Dance 50% up as well as a Memory Gauge 20% up that requires your mental to be 49% or lower. This has a 49% chance to activate once and also unlocks an additional plus 50 Vocal uncapped. At 3 stars, she gains a Dance 30% buff that requires Yuika to be on your team and has a 50% chance to activate twice, and also unlocks an additional plus 150 Vocal uncapped. Her memory appeal when maxed out is a Vocal 2.0 that links into a Vocal 4.0 at max, assuming that your mental is incredibly low. This is where the revenge part of her roles kicks in. For support recommendations, our high priority supports will mix Vocal and Dance, though you're welcome to focus on one over the other depending on your preference. Both have their positives, though you might find more mileage through Vocal, so adjust accordingly. As for alternative supports, they focus on other forms of utility for Vocal and Dance respectively. Utilizing the Sakuya SR support will definitely assist if you want a more defensive approach and want to take more of a dance-oriented role for this Yuika rather than Vocal. You can of course include the limited Kogane as well as Mamimi if you want just more aggressive damage. The SR Kogane is a good alternative if you picked her up last year, and then many of the others are either limiteds that have been ran in the past, or standard units that are useful for Vocal and Dance, that are around forever. As for team recommendations, honestly speaking, you can rotate between Kiriko, Sakuya, or Yuika as your center depending on preference. Yuika is a bit for more faster teams, but it doesn't really synergize with Sakuya or Kiriko's appeals at all. The reverse, so having either Sakuya or Kiriko as your center, actually works out a little bit better, especially when you consider Kogane setups as well. As for alternative cards, this mostly depends on which limiteds you may or may not have found in your shiny career. Sakuya 3 can be an alternative if you want a more aggressive playstyle, and Kiriko 3 acts as a dedicated buffer unit if you feel your damage is lacking. Overall, Yuika as a center gets anywhere from an A to an A+. Overall, her memory appeal is solid, but it might feel tricky to set up without making the most of her at 4 stars. It also doesn't help that Vocal Antika have 2 other incredible leaders. That being said, if you lack those 2, Yuika can make do, though you miss out on what makes this card truly the most impactful, as she herself can be kind of middling. She's great if you think you want to fight on the short term, but bad for teams that want to stall things out. At least as a center. As a unit, she gets anywhere from a B to an S+, depending on how you feel. This card can feel somewhat underwhelming or absolutely incredible for the team you're trying to build. Having access to a very solid amount of vocal damage along with a half-health self-damage effect can absolutely enable teams that want to abuse revenge passives as much as possible. and the flexibility of a more defensive dance build can also accommodate some teams. That all being said, her free SR, one that you've probably found already, is basically just as good. So, again, your mileage may vary as to how you feel about this Yuika. There are some rumblings that Yuika might not have actually been a limited unit in her design phase, and was kind of shifted to be a limited unit for some reason or another. We don't really know. It's all the grapevine, he said, she said kind of stuff, so who knows. But good luck if you do choose to pull for Yuika. Next we have Chiyuki. Chiyuki is a bit of a weird card, to be brief, which seems to be the theme of this banner. She feels somewhat underwhelming from the get-go, despite having a decent amount of abilities going for her. Perhaps if she had one more mastery, maybe even a vocal mastery, she'd feel a bit stronger. Her strong points is that she has a very solid SP gain, has access to perfect mastery, which has been relatively hard to find, and also has a very good gold passive. Her support skills are Idol's Bond, Promise Recovery, and Rest Boost, and her unique masteries are Unit Mastery SP, which reaches +8 at level 70, and Perfect Mastery, which reaches +7 at level 75. To refresh you on Perfect Mastery, since it has been a bit, if Chiyuki's cut-in happens during a run, this means that whatever room Chiyuki is in, assuming you don't fail the lesson or job, will automatically give you double of whatever is in the room. It will enable a perfect. So it's very useful if you're trying to amass a lot of stats really quickly. Her support appeal does scale, starts at a 3.1 at level 60, and works its way up to a vocal 3.5 at level 80. Her TFD idea is appeal, and her insight token for grad is vocal. Chiyuki's 1-star passive is a mental 20% recovery, which requires your mental to be 74% or lower. This has a 30% chance to activate once. Her 2-star passive is a vocal 75% up, which requires your mental to be 75% or higher. This has a 10% chance to activate 3 times. Her 3-star uncap is a +100 to vocal, and her 4-star appeal is a vocal 2.0 that attacks all judges and recovers your health by 5%, which can go into a memory overflow. This means that however much health you do not recover from this 5% recovery, assuming that you are at 95% or higher, any of that excess healing is converted into memory gauge. Her event passive is a vocal 30% up that requires Chiyuki on your team and has a 10% chance to activate twice. Chiyuki gets an A, but maybe closer to an A-. Something about this card just feels off, compared to many of the cards that surround Chiyuki or have released around the same time. She feels like almost a complete unit, but needs 1 or 2 more things to really shine as a support. Perhaps they held onto this card for too long and released her later than they planned? She's a little bit of a hard sell, as really you only have one passive that you're particularly interested in, but she's pretty good if you want to consider Vocal Alstroemeria as your main team. I moderately recommend pulling for this card unless you are absolutely dedicated to Vocal Alstroemeria or believe in the chance of a Rainbow Alstroemeria in the future. Next we have the first mono today. Our latest mono SSR is a card style we've seen in the past, as she's more or less a carbon copy of the last event Meguru and Hiyori, which we've discussed on the channel before. Just keep in mind that she's a vocal visual card to mirror her initial SSR, so feel free to use this card if you want to make the most for true ends and the like. Support skills are Idol's Bond, Promise Recovery, Rest Boost. Her unique masteries are Visual Mastery Vocal and Vocal Mastery Visual, which reach +9 at level 80. Her support appeal scales starting at a Vocal Visual 1.6 at level 60, and becomes a Vocal Visual 1.8 by level 80. Her TFD idea is Dance, and her insight token for grad is Vocal. Mono's 1-star passive is a Vocal Visual 12% up that requires the turn count to be 3 or less. This has a 30% chance to activate once. Her 2-star passive is a Vocal Visual 20% up that requires your star count to be 9 or less. This has a 30% chance to activate once. Her 3-star uncap is a +50 to vocal and visual together, and her 4-star appeal is a Vocal Visual 2.0. Her event passive is a Vocal Visual 4% that requires mono on your team and has a 40% chance to activate twice. Mono gets anywhere from a B+ to an A-. I think this mono is best valued on players who lack SSR supports. Having access to a solid mix of room mastery can assist players struggling through wing, and can even account for weird room setups in TFD, or even grad. Her support appeal is great for dual stat runs, and also helps compensate for bad skill draws. A combined 40% gold passive is also not bad for the cards that can use it best. She's an excellent pairing with Hiyori and Meguru as a true end engine. Lastly, we have the second mono. A rerun support from last year's summer campaign under a whole new campaign. A primarily dance-centric card, this mono was meant to act as a basic gateway for dance supports, as they weren't quite as prevalent around the time of her release. As she is now, she is strictly okay, bordering on below average, but she can help you get by as you earn more copies. Her support skills are Idol's Bond, Promise Recovery, Rest Boost, and Trouble Guard, and her unique mastery is Dance Mastery Dance, which reaches +6 at level 80. Her TFD idea is Dance, and her insight token for Grad is Vocal. This mono's 1-star passive is a dance 18% up that requires you to be in the dance position. This has a 30% chance to activate once. And as of one of the recent updates in Shiny Colors, this actually will tell you now that this buff cannot activate in Produce modes, so it only functions in Grade Fest, or in Grade Fest auditions. Her 2-star passive is a dance 20% up and visual 15% up that requires your turn count to be 3 or less. This has a 30% chance to activate once. Her 3-star uncap is a +50 to dance, and her 4-star appeal is a dance 2.5 that applies a 20% vocal visual buff for 3 turns. Her event passive is a dance 6% up that requires mono on the team and has a 40% chance to activate twice. Mono gets a B-. Splash Beat Mono is nothing particularly special nowadays, but she does fill out the large roster of mono supports if you're a big fan of the bird. She has all the same functionality in TFD and Grad that the new event mono has, just in the polar opposite attribute. You'll pick up copies of her as you complete the campaign, so look forward to a simple and easy to use support going forward. And that's going to do it for the video today. Thank you so much as always for watching. If you like what you saw, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share it around to let people know what it is we're doing here on the channel. Next time we're going to be looking at the presumed next limited banner, though we're hoping it's not. It's going to be featuring a new SSR for Rinze, as well as a new card for Sakuya. So if you're a Hokago P or Antika P, get ready. So, till next time, I've been Cho, thanks for watching, and have a wonderful rest of your day.